dispersed to Côte d'Ivoire 22 million, and to Senegal 22 million, and to Côte d'Ivoire nearly $800,000. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, I just want, there's a number of challenges. Yeah, some of them is to get countries to sign the treaty establishing our mechanism, and also to go further to ratify it. It's very important, it's very crucial. It gives some independency to our mechanism. So another challenge is to get a mechanism that can consistently support countries to pay premium. Country may feel some fatigue, some way or another, and there is other development priorities that can, kick in. So the next slide, please. So just I want to emphasize here the press release testing that Senegal is going to get the 22 million at the end of the agriculture season this year. Next slide, please. So, Honorable Monsieur le Président, encore une fois, je voudrais vous remercier.
Honorable President, we would like to thank you for the opportunity that you have given us today to make this presentation. And as I said earlier, we firmly believe that we can assist, and that the Pan-African Parliament can help us to move forward with what we are trying to do for the continent. One of the recommendations is that all the countries sign the treaty to activate the mechanism, and over and above this suggestion, it's
de nous aider pour.
So if you could please help us with the lobbying to move forward with what we are doing in building alliances between countries. Thank you very much, Honourable President, and thank you, representatives of the people, for your attention. Thank you very much to the representative for this presentation. You have been heard, and we completely understand your challenges. We also have issues with ratification, but together we will work together on this. I would now like to call on the Vice Chairperson for the Committee on Transport, Industry, Communications, Energy and Technology to make their presentation. I think that this presentation was indeed distributed, so I would like to ask the Chairperson, therefore, to present a brief summary. You have the floor. So let us focus on the expected results and the conclusions. Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, honourable MPs, I would like to give you a summary of the work completed during the workshop for three committees: the Committee on Transport, the Committee on Rural Economy, Agriculture, Natural Resources, and the Committee on Trade, Customs and Immigration. In her welcoming remarks, Honourable Jacqueline Mongare, Chairperson of the Committee on Transport, Industry, Communications, Energy and Technology, shared that, as honourable members might be aware, the Pan-African Parliament, through its committees, recognizes that energy plays a vital role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals through its ability to stimulate economic growth, generate employment, improve educational opportunities, and improve general health and well-being. So, In terms of the presentations that we looked at, we started off with the urgency of achieving universal access to energy in Africa, which was delivered by Honourable Kande Kole Yomkela, Member of Parliament from Sierra Leone and Chairperson of the Committee on Transport, Industry, Communications, Energy and Technology. Dr. Yomkela indicated that in the next decade, the African continent will have to manage 5 major transitions in order to ensure sustainable development for its people. There is a need to, therefore, manage international trade and industrialization within the context of the 4th Industrial Revolution that the rest of the world is already involved in, invest in energy transitions and infrastructure development in order to reduce the cost of doing business and enhance systemic competitiveness of strategic productive sectors. 3, manage democratic transitions to produce enlightened and accountable leadership with a clear vision to deliver greater human development. 4, manage demographic transitions, and so that is the youth bulge, the capitalize on low cost, highly skilled labor resources to gain a competitive edge, and 5, build climate resilience in all public and private investments and grow strategies to ensure environmental sustainability over the long run. In terms of the next theme, energy access and a women's empowerment, we had a presentation by Sheila Oparocha, and she informed participants that Energia, the organization she was representing, envisaged a world where women and men had equal and equitable access to and controlled over sustainable energy services and products. The institution saw this as an essential right to improve their livelihoods and standard of living. And this was in view of the Africa leaders' commitment to sustainable development and their aspirations for the future we want. She noted in her presentation on the energy challenges in Africa that no country could initiate its development without a coherent energy policy. This is the Honourable Jacqueline Amongen. In Africa, potential exists to harness energy for development, but the means are lacking. In light of this mismatch between available resources and the absence of the means of implementation of an energy policy, it is the women who pay the heavy price. The high mortality rate and poverty among women are real problems generated by the energy deficit. In terms of the next theme, 2.4, the role of the private sector in electricity access, this was presented by Mr. Brian Dames, Chief Executive Officer, Africa Rainbow Energy and Power, and he submitted that Africa had the greatest demand for energy due to developmental programs being undertaken and a need for an energy miracle to meet this demand. He therefore contended that by 2030, Africa would need more energy and to invest in no-regret project solutions. He submitted that in Africa, if Africa did not act quickly in 2040, we might find an unprecedented energy deficit. And Mr. Dames told participants that money and technology is available in the private sector through banks such as Nedbank and African Development Bank. 2.5, next theme, Africa's transition to low-carbon, climate-resilient, green economic development, Africa's renewable energy potential. This was presented by Matika Makwenda, Executive Director of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. And this is a continental coalition of more than 1,000 civil society organizations from diverse backgrounds. And the renewable energy systems are a major topic when discussing the globe's energy future for 2 main reasons, namely that renewable energy systems provide energy from sources that would never deplete, and that renewable energy systems produce less greenhouse gas emissions than fossil fuel energy systems. In this regard, African governments should accelerate the energy transformation to tackle climate change and poverty by supporting renewable energy and energy efficiency in Africa. In 2.6, we had a presentation on the role of parliamentarians in the provision of clean energy. This was delivered by Dr. Tapiwa Mashakada, MP from Zimbabwe, and he stated that the role of parliamentarians the world over is to legislate, approve the estimates of revenue and expenditure, represent people and provide oversight over the executive who is responsible for policy formulation, as well as the Treasury. Members of Parliament need to ensure that the executive put the money where their mouth is, or walk the talk, as he said. And Dr. Mashada indicated that, regrettably, there is no legislative and policy framework in many African countries to guide the universal access to energy, particularly in remote areas where most of the vulnerable sectors of the population, such as women and girls, are found. The role of parliamentarians in this regard is to monitor government commitment to the provision of renewable energy and to ensure that governments delivered solutions. With regards to national budgets, MPs should ensure that national governments provide fiscal incentives such as zero rating of solar energy products and equipment for other forms of energy. Being the people's representatives who are always in contact with the grassroots, MPs should also raise public awareness on this issue. Now, 2.7 was in our discussions, and here we had many discussions pertaining to how government ministries and institutions had approached Africa Rainbow Energy and Power Company for the funding of renewable projects. We move now on to possible outcomes. In order to make renewable energy available and accessible to all, including women, there was a need to, 1, abolish import duty on renewable energy components and accessories, 2, treat universal access to power as an economic human right, 3, identify cheap and appropriate sources of renewable energy, 4, invest in local human resource development instead of relying on foreign companies, incentivize investment in energy, develop capacities, and consider the interlinkages of energy access, industrialization, trade, and jobs. Conclusion, it goes without saying that in the next decade, the African continent will have to manage 5 major transitions in order to ensure sustainable development for its people. There's a need to manage international trade and industrialization within the context of the 4th Industrial Revolution that the rest of the world is already engaged in. African states have to invest in energy transitions and infrastructure development in order to reduce the cost of doing business and enhance systemic competitiveness of strategic productive sectors, and manage democratic transitions to produce enlightened and accountable leadership with a clear vision to deliver greater human development. Thank you, Mr. President. That is a summary of the joint workshop of the Committees of Transport, Agriculture and Trade. Thank you very much, dear colleague. That was an excellent summary of the work completed, and I now declare the debate open. So I'm only giving everybody 2 minutes because these presentations were just for noting. MP Fatou Jara from Gambia, you have the floor. 2 minutes.
Withdrawn. Withdraw, Honorable Fatou Aksa Bwembe Ngonga from Zambia.
I pass, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. And now I give the floor to Honorable Dr. Saloun Cissé from Guinea, not in the chamber. And now let me give the floor to Honorable Alaji Darbo from Gambia, not in the chamber. Not in the chamber. And now I want to give the floor to Honorable Nilson Bristow from Cabo Verde, not in the chamber. And now let me give the floor to Honorable Yeramin Shiana from Malawi. Malawi.
I am in the chamber. Thank you, Mr. President. My interventions are only 2 items. Use of energy, especially renewable energy, should devolve all the way to training pupils at a very low level of education so that they can understand the importance of energy. Otherwise, with climate change and the fuels, the rate of depletion is getting greater and greater and creating calamities in the climate change. And the item number 2, I would also love to encourage African countries to enhance interconnectivity activities, because some of the countries may not meet the energy gap as climate change and resilience are changing in the pattern. Thank you.
From Gambia, not in the chamber. The last in my list is Honorable Anifa Kawuya from Uganda.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well pronounced, and I'm available here. Mr. President, I have one or two observations with the first presentation on the African Risky Treaty. As in my own opinion, maybe I got it wrong. I saw it's much of a presentation in towards insurance policy, and the interventions which mostly are coming in is after the disasters, and Uganda being one of the countries that is prone to disaster. I needed to hear more how this treaty comes in, that those countries that are specifically known that they are prone to disaster, which I wanted more light on. Now, when we go to the report, I want to thank the report which was for the committee that was held. In the area of transport and trade, we need to develop our infrastructure if Africa is to move ahead. Managing and utilization of our resources is one other factor that I wanted to hear more, and to ensure emphasis. Ensuring investment in agriculture is another area that we wanted to hear more when it comes to the committee and their workshop. If we want to compete, Africa is compete globally on the global scene, there is need for partnership. That's why the West countries are going faster, because they are in a partner, and there is a need for zoning our products, which must be end finished products. That is value added. And in trading, we cannot trade what we don't produce. We cannot trade what we don't have. We must ensure that there is what we have so that we can trade it. I thank you so much.
Merci. Le débat.
Thank you. The general debate is closed. Now I would like to give the floor to the representative of ARC and the deputy chairperson of the Committee on Transport for their comments. You have the floor. Representative of the African Risk Capacity Agency, ARC. There was a question by Honorable Anifa asking for commenting that interventions usually come after disasters. What can you say to this?
President, regarding the question from the Honorable Representative from Uganda, indeed, ARC is, as my colleague was presenting, ARC is a mechanism for member states to access quick disbursing funds to mitigate emergencies caused by disasters. And the concept is basically to be the first intervention through member states' own resources kept aside through payment of premium to respond quickly and proactively to natural disasters. I'm sure you may recall the devastating impact of tropical cyclone Idai in Mozambique. In the case of the ARC mechanism, if, for instance, if Mozambique was a treaty signature and participating in the risk pooling mechanism, quick disbursing funds could have been used in the emergency phase of the intervention, and that's the way the mechanism is designed. And then, of course, there's other instruments that come in much later into the recovery phase and rehabilitation phases of impacts of disasters. For Uganda specifically, Uganda has not yet signed the treaty for the ARC agreement. We encouraged the honourable member to, as part of course, the recommendations we've set forth, to encourage Parliament to sign the treaty so that we can accelerate the technical work which entails next of signing an MOU to begin the capacity building work, to participate in the capacity building work where the country can then make an informed decision to participate in the ARC mechanism. Of course, there are terms and conditions apply when operating such international risk pooling mechanism with insurance, which the ARC instrument offers. There's proof of concept, as you can see from the presentation my colleague made. Over the years, a number of countries have already benefited, and this year already, due to the drought situation in the West African region, Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire would receive payouts to activate the contingency plan, which we have developed with them to respond quickly to the disasters upon the occurrence. But furthermore, the ARC mechanism uses early warning satellite systems. So a country already knows, even before the season ends, for example, in the context of drought, that it received a certain amount of estimated funds. And closer to the end of the season, the satellite early warning tool, which we use, also shows how the season progresses. And a definite number would be, in terms of the impact of disasters, number of people affected, and the insurance contract. A country will receive a payout based on those terms and conditions. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Je donne la parole au...
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to the Deputy Chairperson to address. You talked about the markets, and you talked about the need to industrialize our continent. That's my understanding, and that's probably not the answer by the Deputy Chairperson. You have the floor, sir. Thank you. Can you please stand up? You have a good size like me, so we may not ask you to do so. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank the colleagues who intervened earlier. I believe that the problem is faced by all of us. It is we are completely concur with the speaker who said that who had said that this issue should be incorporated in our educational system at an early stage. I believe that this is a very good thing, and it is a good proposal that we should include in our report. As regards the questions raised so far, we believe that a debate was carried out and opinions were voiced. And I believe I will stop here because the fundamental issue is this call to integrate those provisions in our educational curricula as early as in primary education. I thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much. I see no further comments or objections adopted. Dear colleagues, allow me to say that thanks to our speakers, I believe that the struggle to ratify our legal instruments is our common struggle to turn our parliament into a legislative body. We need to see how all of us together can fight so that the legal instruments are ratified. It is only then that African peoples would benefit from your support. As for the question of disasters witnessed in most of our countries as a result of climate change, I would like to thank my colleagues for their respect of order and their interest. We discussed issues that are of common interest to Africa, and all of this is done for the benefit of our continent. Clark, you have the floor, sir. The first announcement is that we inform all the chairpersons of committees that they need to appoint a representative of their committee to participate in the meeting of the Papa Alliance on Sustainable Development Goals from 12 hours to 13 hours. I think now it should take place after this meeting. Each committee should appoint a member who will participate in the Alliance meeting, and the meeting will take place in room 4. The second announcement is that the fourth deputy president of the Pan-African Parliament asks the members to participate in the meeting that will take place after the plenary in the presidential road. This is Honorable Boras and Honorable Torre and Honorable Jinnah and members of the Committee on Rules. I think that the Committee on Rules should be represented by a member to this meeting. The caucus groups chairs are also invited to this meeting. The meeting will address the issues relating to the mission that will take place to Addis Ababa following the recommendation of the plenary to deal with issues of health coverage, travel class, and budgetary issues. The invited members are kindly requested to attend this meeting. I thank you. I hope that every honorable, on the basis of his experience, can join this meeting and to share expertise. We need to develop solid arguments to defend the gains of the Pan-African Parliament. The clerk did not refer to this issue of the diplomatic passport, which is referred to in Rule 10 of our Rules of Procedures, in addition to allowances. The meeting will take place in the presidential room, late Mugabe. That's committee room. The meeting will take place there right after the plenary. I invite you to participate in this meeting and to develop solid arguments. Dear colleagues, we have come to the end of our deliberations. This session stands adjourned. We shall resume tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The session stands adjourned. Thank you.